The rest of the Space Wolf releases are finally here.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Bear from SpikyBits.com, and in this video, I'm going to unbox and build the new Space Wolf releases outside of the Army box. We did a whole another video on the Army box and told you what we thought of all that and the comparisons and things. I was actually really impressed with the box itself, the selection, and just the fact that they went back and resculpted everything and made a lot more options for players, which was really neat. So let's see if this wave 2, so to speak, lives up to the hype or if it falls flat a bit. So here's the actual new kits for this release wave. Got the drop pods here for $80. I cover that in a completely different video, and I definitely think it's worth your time to check out because I had quite a bit to say about this one, to say the least. Then you got Logan Grimnar, and he is $70 US. Arjac Rockfist is $45 US. Then we got Njal Stormcaller, or Njal, depending on how you want to pronounce it, is also $45. And then the Wolfguard Terminator box, which Wolfguard have been so iconic over the past 10 years or so. This one is $65 as well. And it mirrors the Headtaker box that also came out this week, but we've already covered that in an Army box. But again, this is just a new content. We covered this in a different video, and we're gonna go over this right now. So sprue-wise, these guys, I don't think there's going to be too much to them, except, you know, because we've seen a lot of this stuff in the past. Now, what I'm curious about is the conversion potential here. So they're both going to come with 40mm bases, and once we start kind of digging in and taking a look, they go together basically just like the Terminator, the new Primaire size Terminators over here with the front pauldron. Now, curiously, they both don't have alternative head swaps, which is really interesting because Games Workshop came out and was like, hey, look at all these cool heads that are in the Wolfguard Terminator box, but they only give you enough for the Wolfguard Terminators themselves and not enough for any other kit, which is kind of mind-boggling that they don't have a helmeted version for these guys. So we're going to see what we can do about that when we put them together. So I was a little disappointed in that. I mean, everything else seems to be pretty much normal as far as like an assembly goes. So we're not going to spend too much time on these guys here. And then we got the Wolfguard Terminators, which have had a really storied kind of life over the years. Now, this box makes two different variants of these guys. They both look pretty cool, but a lot of folks have brought up the fact that, or bemoaned the fact, I suppose, that there isn't a way to make like some of the cool options from yesteryear, like with Cyclone launchers, and, you know, Thunderhammer storm shields when you can attach them to squads and things. So these guys go together pretty generically. They just kind of tell you at the front, like, hey, here's all the storm bolters, and here's all the different heads, and, you know, here's all the shoulder pads and things. And then you just kind of put them together like that. And they're the typical Primaire style of the Terminators, where they have these little studs on there that make the shoulder pads kind of bulk out a little bit. And that's really all that's different about the scale-wise. Compared to the older Terminators, so they kind of figured a way to upscale them on the sly. And then you can basically pick which variant you want to do as far as the battle leader or the sergeant in the squad there. It makes 4 different options if you want, depending. And then in the back, they show you. Oh, then you got the guy with the Cyclone, or not the Cyclone, the assault launcher. So basically they can all be made with a close combat weapon and a storm bolter, or power sword, power axe is here, or with the lightning claws and then storm shields. So that's it. So this is what they'll end up looking like depending on how you put them together. You know, I could see where folks might get a little mad about that, but you know, that's the kit we got for the foreseeable future. So everything seems to be getting more generic and more watered down as we move forward. And then there's Logan Grimnar, which is another story character for so many years. The pose looks great, very similar to the big collectible statue that HMO put out. When it comes to sprues, you know, there's a lot going on here. The new Fenrir-using wolves are very similar to the ones from the Headtakers, which we showed you already. So that's kind of cool to see. I was a little disappointed that there's no optional head in here, helmeted head rather. And I'm going to show you a quick gotcha. Now it goes together just like the Terminator And it's going to come on, I think this is at 80, and this is, what is it, 60? Nope, that's an 80. So it's an 80 millimeter base that comes in here, just like Lionel Johnson, which I don't have a Lionel Johnson to compare, sadly. So I got to see if I got something else on an 80 millimeter base to compare, because I never actually got a Lionel Johnson because he was so allocated. Stores only got like 2. Like, what was that? Still not much better. Spoiler alert. So that's kind of the things I have. Well, there's actually a couple things. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at the instructions real quick. So again, I'm not sure why they changed the format, because it used to have the sprues all laid out so you can kind of see what you got and make sure you got the right thing, and they'd show you the size base. But again, it just seems like they keep going and making things more watered down and more vanilla, where it isn't helpful anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it goes together just like this typical Terminator, the Primera size ones that we would expect. It's got some cool optional shoulder pads here, which is neat. And then there's a little, you got the old size ones, and then you got these new adapter size ones here. So if somebody could 3D print these, in theory, you could take the older size Terminators that you have in your collection, put these on them, put new shoulder pads on them, and boom, you've got the new scale. Or you could just put them on bigger size, vertically bases, not, you can't change the base size of 40 millimeters, but those are just 2 different options there. And then his Axe Mordecai, I believe it's called, goes on there, and the wolf pelt on the back, wolf head on the back, and then boom, you've got him. Now, this is where it gets weird. So you've got the 2 Fenrisian wolves here, which I gotta be honest with you, they kind of look a little derpy. I mean, yeah, they're kind of like doing their thing, but they look a little derpy. I don't know what it is. I'm not completely sold on them, but I don't hate them. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. But here's where it gets really weird. So they've got these little paw bits that go on here, but then there's other paw bits that are actually on the rock. So it's going to make it hard to assemble this in sections if you really want to paint them. And obviously you do want to paint Logan Grimnar correctly, well, nicely, because, he's such a kind of centerpiece model. But you can see the issue here. Like, it's going to be hard to get in there and paint all this if you assemble it together. And if you glue them down to the base with their little mittens, the little doggy mittens are on the actual rock face itself. This is weird. Like, why did they do that? Again, they're making these calls to cut corners, to cut costs, to have to give you this size sprue instead of putting an extra half a sprue in here with some proper size feetsies and an extra helmet to actually put in here, and things to do it right. And this is why I get so mad at Games Workshop, because they make these. They're literally beating their chest about how they make so much money and they're the best in the history of ever, and they have all these sales and we're doing great. But really, the dark side is they're leaving money on the table and they're pulling like this, where it's just not, there's not additional value to the consumer, and all the cool bits and all the cool things that we came accustomed to over the years, they're just basically phoning it in and giving you some crap and making your hobby endeavor a little bit harder, because this could have entirely been avoided. And I'm not happy with it, but it's part of the saga of being a Warhammer hobbyist, because you never really know what you're going to get from them. But once you get it together, and even in the rendering, he looks great for sure. So that's what I'm upset about with Logan Grimnar. Now let's take a look at the assembled models and kind of compare them to some other stuff, and I can kind of show you what I think as far as the comparisons and maybe how you might want to go about converting yours. So here's the new Wolf Guard, and they are on 60 mil bases, but these models are getting so big, they're looking big on 40 mil bases. They're starting to look kind of chunky. The only real problem with this model was this one here, and the top has a little bit of gapping, but you can use some sprue glue, or of course the Tamiya extra thin cement I always talk about, or even some Vallejo plastic putty to kind of fix that right there. No big deal. And then here is the guy with the assault cannon. Now, we put the normal Terminator heads on here because, I mean, let's be honest, you don't run around battle with a bare head. I'm a little disappointed the fact that they didn't have specific, wolfy kind of shoulder pads. I feel like that was a missed opportunity, but they do have, the wolf tail talismans and things all over it. And obviously you can cut those off to taste, but yeah, I feel like they could have done a little bit more for these guys, but I don't know. And then here's how it compares to the new Primera scale Terminator multi-part kit. Now, we showed you how to magnetize this one, and you could obviously do the same thing. And then there you can see how it all works with the inside. Well, once I take this off, You can see the little studs there on the inside. I left this off so I could replace it with whatever 3D printed extra bits here. So you can kind of see how the shoulder pads now go over the little adapters to make it look like a bigger profile without really having to do anything else to the model itself. And it's a little disappointed there isn't cyclone missile launchers. If you're, kind of a old school player like me, you might remember these things being a very big deal back in the day when it came to these guys, but not quite so much more, I guess, which is a little bit sad. And here's how they compare it to, well, this is the Wolfguard Battle Leader, but that's how they compare it to the Primaris Wolfguard Battle Leader. We already showed you that out of the new box there. Here's Arjac, and he is just a gangster. It's just a really cool composition. The fact that you get 2 hammers in here to kind of choose from, depending on what you want to do, is really neat. But there is no helmeted head. So I took a helmeted head from the Wolfguard box, gave him a targeter, because why not? He's throwing a hammer. I just blue tacked it in here so it can be replaced back with the bear head, depending on who ends up with this model at the end of the day. But I mean, it's a cool model and very cool composition. I was just a little disappointed that, didn't have that extra head in there for a helmeted head. And then when it comes to Njal Stormcaller, this is just a really cool model in general. The composition is awesome. He's obviously calling the storm. He's got some little texture elements down there, that you can paint to be snow, to be, bluish crystals and things. His cyber familiar here is really dope. Like, this is everything that we wish we had model-wise way back in the day. It's just a really, really cool model. The disappointing part about it is that if you want to have a helmeted head, it's going to be a little tough, and that's because his beard is actually part of the the bracer, the arm brace right there. So you'd have to get a little creative to convert this one with a helmeted head, but it isn't undoable, and I just didn't want to take the time to do it, to be quite honest. But there are, some. Is this one? No, that's not one. There are some, well, I don't have one here. I guess you could use some of the head taker heads, maybe, if you really wanted to kind of try to put to work in there. You'd have to take the tassel off, but the look would be good. It's, basically the same armor type, but you could kind of, tinker around with that. I mean, you could even give him one of the heads from the Iron Priest here, I suppose, if you really wanted to. I don't know. I'm a little disappointed in that one, but the rest of the model looks super dope. And then when it comes to Logan Grimnar, here he is. Now, we blue tacked him to the base because, like I said, it's going to be very problematic to paint this, potentially, depending on how you want to do it, if, the feces are basically attached here. So maybe what I recommend, and this is how I would tackle this project, is you put Logan on a separate base, and then you kind of go about painting these guys together. Fur is really easy to dry brush, and then ground is really easy to do some other effects on. But I wouldn't want Logan as part of that assembly, basically. Like, he would have to come off, and then you could paint him separately. Now, also, as far as Logan goes, we didn't put his regular head on here. We put another Space Wolf. Actually, no, I think I had to take that from the multi-part Terminator kit because there wasn't another spare head from the Wolfguard box. So I had to dig deep into the bits bin and grab a Terminator head from this kit here that came out back into 2013 to give him that targeter. But, you could give him any cool Terminator head that's out there, or, something else that might fit. Like, in theory, I guess you could use one of these too. Like the Primaris kind of head taker heads, but then he doesn't technically have Primaris armor. I don't know. That was just my quick solution that I feel like looks a lot better. There is a helmeted head version for that big statue you could take a look at if you're looking for some inspiration on what to do here, but I don't think that looks too bad. And it's blue tacked in there, so again, whoever ends up with this model from us would be able to get it. Oh, and something else that I didn't bring up at all, and I'm glad I just noticed this and remembered to tell you guys, is besides the footsies being part here, the bearded head is actually attached to this bit right here, and you can see where we had to cut it to separate that head. It isn't undoable, but just be aware that if you want to take the bare head off, you're going to have to do a little bit of hobbying right there. It's a very thin cut, but it's not undoable to get that in there. And he's a gangster. I mean, this is a very cool model, way cooler than all the Logan Grimnars we've had in the past for sure. And obviously, you know, they're trying to do that whole Primera scale size with an 80 mil base. Now let's take a look at how some of these compare. Oh, I'm losing one of the wolves here, to some of the other wolf models that are out there. Okay, well, this isn't exactly other Space Wolves here, but we've got our Horus Ascended model that is actually on a 80 mil base as well. So like I said, they're trying to get more into the Primarch kind of size. Now he looks bigger because he's got that textured base, but it is on an 80 mil right down there. So that was kind of interesting to see. Whereas Gilliman from what, 2017, 2018, I don't even remember, is on a 60 mil base, but looks super fresh for sure. Both of them do, you know. But that was just an interesting comparison to make. And then over here, here's how he compares to like some of the Wolf Garden things. So, you know, so basically, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's kind of a mixed bag. Like, there's some good and there's some bad about these designs. There's some stuff that, you know, maybe if you know the player, you're like, oh man, I wish it was this way. But, you know, there's some stuff as a newer player that's still kind of cool. And there's some opportunities to really get in here and convert these models too. Now, I wish they had done a little bit better of a job, like I was saying, with, you know, some extra bits and accoutrements in some of these things. But at the end of the day, they obviously had to make a financial decision, which I definitely don't agree with. And, you know, I don't know where you stand with it, but I feel like there's definitely some room for improvement with these. Whereas the first, you know, all the kits that were in the Army box, I think were kind of like a home run as far as like design and value there. So it's a little interesting to see them go from that kind of, you know, value proposition to this right here, which they're cool. They're designed, you know, they look dope. They're very striking. You can do a little bit more depending on how much hobby you want to do on them. But I feel like they're just a little off the mark right here. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments. And thanks again for watching our unboxing build of the new Space Wolf Wave 2 releases here in 2025.
Thanks for watching. Supporting us is super easy. Just click on the article links provided, subscribe, or follow us right here. And remember, next time you're searching for the best Warhammer news, type Spiky Bits into Google to get the most accurate info. See you in the next one.